So namaskar everyone, and I feel blessed to be living in Bangalore. It's an amazing weather down here, and I'm looking to go for a walk after this webinar, to be honest. And I hope you all have filled in your kappa because next 90 minutes going to be really engaging and extremely insightful. The events of 2020 and the impact of COVID-19 have been felt by everyone, and it's been felt around the world. And it is a year that will define how we work and live our life. However, one thing that remains common is we individuals, the leaders, and the organizations, the way we work, we act for our purpose, and how we are positively impacting the society. And I'm very keenly looking for today's discussions, not only because CEO Lounge is into the B2B business, but because also we have like six amazing thought leaders from the industry that really make the B2C industry, as Jyoti says, powerful. Yeah. Now, as the lockdown is slowly opening up, every corporate is talking about workplace changes in response to the coronavirus. And I know several CEOs who are personally overseeing this change in providing a safe place to work alongside giving a right work-life balance. And we have Pranay Gupta, co-founder of 91 Springboard, a co-working space, not only focused in building a workplace, but also giving their community and the members a lot of knowledge and exchange of ideas and learnings. So it will be great to hear from him today on how to thrive at work, and also hear from him how is the workplace business impacted, and what is the kind of the way forward to this. COVID-19 has also disrupted the global distribution, and it has been disrupted, which has never been seen before. The supply chain, the increased border controls, the custom regulations. I think it has made the distribution more and more challenging. The long haul, there's not enough capacity for the long haul. And so how are the logistic leaders? They are thinking creatively to do the best support for their customers and suppliers. And we have Sandeep Juneja, Vice President, Sales and Marketing of DHL, to shed more light on that particular subject. Temporary workers, contract staffing, sourcing, deployment. Is that the need of the hour for the corporates, or are they thinking to look into their own resources at this point of time to fill the void? Is it also, I've been thinking a lot about this, that how are the companies who are facing a critical need to fill an important role either performed by the employees who aren't remote capable, or they had been outsourced to the companies which are around in different parts of the globe? How those things are being basically taken care of? And to talk more on this, we have Amitabh Jaipuria, President from First Meridian. Today also understanding the pulse of clients, consumers, and employees has become a key. Facilities management firms have been committed in building a close, trusting relationships with every individual at every touch point, from food to cleaning, from a single employee to a global team. They've always been focused on individual experiences that make the quality of life. And now many of those experiences are changing out of concern for safety. Now, as workplaces reopen, what is the new normal in many ways? How are the facilities management firms rising to the moment? And how they're trying to work remotely, contactless interactions. Aksh was talking about digitization, safety, well-being, productivity. How are they suggesting the corporates on the changes that needs to happen while the layout of the organization is happening or the company is happening? So we'll hear more from the Aksh Rehtogi, Managing Director, CEO, and Country Manager for ISS Facility Services, on how the industry is changing on this front. Quarantine and the recent coronavirus measures have decimated travel. and a lot of associated businesses, whether it is a car rental, car leasing, car financing, purchasing, they all had a ripple effect on that particular thing. How the world leader in this business, that is Oryx, how are they meeting the customer needs while doing their part to keep the customer and the employees safe? What are the cleaning protocols? I'm one of the customers, and I can proudly say that Oryx really influences and improves the quality of life for their clients, consumers. How are they going to ensure that the quality of life is only going to be enhanced in the new normal? Sandeep Gambhir, Managing Director and CEO Oryx India, will talk on that particular subject in the conversation today. And like everyone else, those of us who work in media, advertising, and marketing have seen a dramatic disruption to our work as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic. And advertising agencies are known to adopt problem-solving mindset for their customers. CEO Lounge, being in this space, very strongly believe that content creates the trust. Trust builds relationship, and relationship brings business. And the advertising agencies help to create that core right content. So who better than Jyoti Kumar Bansal, CEO, PhD, India, to moderate the discussion today? So Sandeep Gambhir, Aksh Rehtogi, Sandeep Juneja, Pranay Gupta, Amitabh Jaipuria, and Jyoti Bansal, they are the top market leaders, very dear friend of mine, and I'm looking forward to listening to an engaging and an insightful conversation. Jyoti, screen is all yours.
Thank you so much, Deepak, and a very warm welcome again to all of our panelists. Like Deepak said, I really believe that it's the B2B CEOs who are powering so much of the more visible, more frontline B2C businesses. And the way that they are looking at their businesses going forward and making them not just survive this crisis that we have all gotten into, which none of us ever planned for, and I think none of us really imagined would ever happen to us, but actually make their businesses thrive and repurpose and be resilient is what is the underlying theme of this conversation today. Are they looking for new pivots? Are incremental changes going to be enough? And of course, the two biggest topics on everybody's mind, which is financial prudence and management, and managing our talent, our employees, our costs. So what I would start off with is addressing my first question to Mr. Juneja. As one of the largest providers of logistics in the country, he and their organization works with, I think, literally almost every sector and every class and every size of corporate in India. So over to you, Mr. Juneja, to share with us a little bit about how you think that this has impacted our economy across sectors, and what are the kinds of new changes that you're seeing happening.
Good morning, Jyoti. Thank you for the question. Can you hear me loud and clear? Brilliant. All right. So I think, so if we look around, we as DHL are dealing with nearly all the industries in the country, because all of them are in some way or the other connected with logistics. So different industries are reacting in different manners. From large companies to small companies. If you look at infrastructure, infrastructure companies, for example, lift-making companies or companies in construction are not doing so well currently. All of us know the automotive story, which was indeed struggling even before in the BC period. And therefore, right now, I think they've come alive, but are operating at 20-30% of their production capacity, depending more on the global demand than on the domestic demand, which is yet to take off. Consumer products, if you leave aside the essential categories, where you see that essential category demand is really shot up, but consumer products outside these essential categories, the demand is low. One category, for instance, IT giants and the Indian IT giants, they were huge on recruitment throughout the year. So you've seen even in the last 30 days, now that we're coming out from the COVID era, or recovering, so to say, we're not really out as yet. Their recruitment is very, very low. I mean, there's no recruitment happening really, and therefore material moving through us for recruitment globally has really come down, right? Corporate offices, I mean, a whole lot of us sit in corporate offices. They're busy focusing on people and business continuity. And we were discussing before the call started about marketing initiatives. So I think classic marketing activities are at an all-time low right now because a lot of it is focused on people, and rightfully so, and business continuity. 2, 3 sectors where things are coming back faster, for example, fashion. Now we know that stores globally are not as alive or resilient right now. Therefore, fashion demand has really come down, but they're repurposing their products in that sense, right? So they are reorienting what they make because a whole new industry of PPE has opened up. And I think if I'm getting my figures right, they say over the next, there's an opportunity of about $4 billion for India and about $60 billion globally in the next 3 or 4 years. Power sector seems to be doing okay. Technology, rightfully, is also catching up very quick because the demands are really shooting up. So, but whatever's happening, some industries are low, some industries are high. But a common problem across industries is people, which is what we also are very, very mindful about, right? And more so in factories, people are just not there. And I don't want to talk about how people have gone back homes, but that's the reality today. And factories are struggling with anything between 30 to 45, 50% of people. And therefore, in all this scenario, everybody is trying to rejig their supply chains, their cost lines, their cash flow. So it's a very volatile environment, so to say. And a lot's happening around in the industry from the way we look at it.
Yeah. So from from the logistics of goods to the logistics of people, and Mr. Gambhir, I would address this to you. As one of the largest providers of transportation in the country, and with work from home sort of becoming the way of life for the last few months, but also looks like it's going to be the way of life for a few more months at least as we go forward. What would be interesting to know is how is it that you are looking at business in the COVID era? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? How are you sort of keeping your really large corporate customers engaged through this period? Because we all know that eventually we will get back to work, but we do have to sort of make life run till then.
Yeah, very right, Jyoti. It's an interesting dilemma, frankly, I would say, because with every challenge that you see, there are opportunities that come along with it. For Oryx, just for starters, we happen to be the largest car rental company in India. We happen to be the largest leasing company in India. We happen to be the second largest employee transportation company in India. And these are very large B2B businesses for us. The overall industry is very fragmented, but still we are the largest in the organized sector as we see it. You're right, with things like work from home and all coming in, the industry is going to get impacted. It's getting disrupted, it's getting impacted. Needs of people are changing, the corporate needs are changing. They may not have the need, or they may be forced to change the need. One is controllable, the other is non-controllable. And if they don't have a need, they don't have a need. I can't control it. But if they have the need, then I have to figure out the best way to do it. But what is most important in these times is engagement with our customers. Whether people travel more or whether people travel less, whoever travels needs safety. Safety first for every. So I think that is one of the most important aspect that we are trying to address with our clients. Like we made an SOP for our employees, we also made an SOP for our standard operating procedure for our clients. Reached out to them well in advance as to how are we getting ready to make sure that the new normal is well addressed, giving them the comfort that if they've thought they were dealing with the best, that still is the fact they're dealing with the best in the industry who knows their job pretty well. So whether the number increases or decreases, whoever travels needs to be safe. And I think that's what we are reaching out to our clients. When I said the dilemma or it's a combination of challenges and opportunities given the various spaces that we are in. We are into transporting people, but we have a very large business which facilitates people buying cars as well, which is our leasing business. With the challenges on the public transportation space, people will probably move to using own cars. So it creates a demand for me on the leasing business. Yes, if work from home increases, there will be lesser people traveling to office and lesser people taking flights and traveling to different cities. So we see some bit of challenge in terms of transport requirements coming down. Now I can see opportunities as well there. Earlier in the employee transportation business, and Akshay, we work with Akshay's team as well in some of those spaces. Uh, 4 people to 6 people in 2 or 3 people in a car. So the need of vehicles may increase if the number of people traveling is same. If the number of people traveling comes down to half, probably the number of vehicles could be same. But these are questions that will have clearer answers once things open up. So there are multiple permutations and combinations at play right now. But as I said, what is important is safety first. Uh, and the other important component is the opportunity that lies in this. You know, we all talk about challenges. Challenges does not impact everybody in the same way. The topic of today's discussion is resilience. Organizations like ours, when we say we are the best and we are the largest, we are not just the largest, we are the most profitable in the space, and we are the only AAA rated company in the space that we operate in. Now that becomes very critical, and you know, we just got rated last week. We have 2 legal vehicles in India, both were rated AAA. Tough thing to get in today's environment, but we did get it. When I deal with some of the largest corporates, you know, Pranay is a customer to us, Aksh, and we partner in a lot of businesses. DHL is a customer to us. So every forum that I go to, at least 75 to 80% of the people we deal with or meet up are customers to us. When you deal with large corporates like these, we have to realize we are a counterparty to them. And for these corporates, counterparty risk is very, very critical for them to assess when they deal with vendors. And that is where I see the opportunity. If we were to say that the whole transportation space is getting impacted, the answer is yes. But it's the resilience of entities like us is far higher than the others in the industry. And that's where I see the opportunity. The industries, whenever they go through, you know, I'm a chartered accountant, what I was taught or I was given to assume in all audits that I've been part of in the past, you know, my early years, going concern is a given. And I think that assumption is changing so dramatically right now. And it applies to anybody and everybody. What we thought was a going concern yesterday may not be a going concern tomorrow. And I see opportunity in that for us as Oryx. Being a large player, our ability to garner a larger share of a lower market size. When I have a larger share in a stable market, I think my ability to garner a larger share in a reduced market, because my resilience is far higher than some of the others. My parentage, my lineage. I think a very, very important component of the whole resilience story is the people. And if you look around Oryx, the kind of rebound that I expect once things open up, because we get a lot of confidence when we speak and talk to our people. It gives me enough confidence that yes, if there are opportunities after lockdown, which they are for sure, because there is no challenge that doesn't throw up opportunities. I think we're very well placed compared to most of our peers or competitors to be able to garner a lot of that. And that's where I see, I feel, yes, the next few months are going to be about survival. It's going to be about just lying low. Adaptability is something that all of us are talking about. That word is becoming so critical now, that how fast you're able to adapt, or how sensible are you now to figure out that things beyond your scope, just let them be as it is, because you can't control most of them, and focus on the areas that you can really control. I can control my engagement, I can control my people being happy, I can control my processes, my efficiencies. And if I take care of those, I will be able to address most of the opportunities that come our way.
Right. I think, you know, the fact that you're talking about the resilience and focus on people, the importance of staying connected to our consumers and what their journey is likely to be with us, and the fact that the whole premise of a going concern is something which really probably needs relooking at. I think these are really interesting points for us to take forward into our discussion. And Aksh, I will, you know, address the next point of discussion to you. You know, we were talking about how, as one of the largest facility services providers in India, you have focused a lot on ensuring that the financial prudence is something which has always been center stage, as well as the fact that, you know, you actually went to a focused strategy of looking after key accounts and really pruning down your list of customers. Now, in the current scenario, would you say that those are things which help you to be more resilient in an unplanned sort of a crisis, or would this force you to go back to the drawing board and revisit some of those premises?
Sure, thank you, Jyoti. And unprecedented times indeed. Everything that we had known about workplaces, business is being challenged, and we are actually in many ways forced to challenge and look at businesses in the light of new emerging trends. Emerging trends in terms of changing customer preferences, trust, confidence, buying habits. We are moving towards an online century where everything that could be done online is now being done online. You're literally forced to do that, and your options to use the regular brick and mortar businesses is coming down. There is this trend of cocooning which is starting. So you do work from home. So everything that could be done from home, just stay at home and do it, because that's the safest place for work. So I really see every business reinventing itself. Only the other day I was talking to one of my friends who used to run a chain of restaurants. You have about 65 restaurants in UK, and it's now transferring it into ready-to-eat restaurants. So so all the fine dining is gone. So you come in, pick your meal, and then you leave. Same things being adopted. We see in India some of our travel portals, or some of the biggest and the largest hotel companies transforming themselves into food deliveries. Okay, India and China are contemplating usage of drones to actually deliver, not only to spray the medicine, but to deliver food, deliver supplies, and all these. Everyone is reinventing. I mean, for us, so ICE has been one of the largest facility management companies in India, with over approximately 70,000 employees in India, spread all over the length and breadth of the country. And over last many years, over 3 to 4 years, we have actually adopted a strategy of working with key accounts, and that really in many ways is helping us out in this environment. A few years back, we took a decision that we cannot try to be everything to everyone, but rather we should try to be everything to someone, okay, and to those select few customers which mirror our values, which mirror our same progressive thinking, and where I think we can actually grow much more, and we can actually be strategic partners to them rather than only being a service provider, which changed the entire way we work with business. So we've chosen 3 business segments for us, which was banking and financial services, business services and IT, and industry and manufacturing. And then everything else that we had, we kind of put them together in something that we call specialized services. While we do work with many of the other customers in other industries as well, but our focus essentially has been these 3 business segments. And we all know B2B businesses are a reflection of their own customers. So what goes to their customers also in many ways have a ramification on our businesses. So if you see, banking right now is exposed to a whole host of risk of NPAs. There is revenue compression, rate cuts, and there is huge collapse in demand. Same thing with business services and IT, with the concept of new the concept of workplace has changed for them. Now they're all the huge amount of money which was invested in infrastructure. Now everyone is challenging, should we actually move to work from home on a more permanent basis? I mean, we all know the announcement made by TCS. Yeah, that's quite revolutionary. It will also throw some problems the moment we adapt to these newer ways of working. I mean, IT security, data privacy, and few of these confidentiality norms used to be the most important bulwark where they had actually created these huge campuses. Now we cannot throw them out of the way. but there has to be some sort of a balance that will creep in. And then the third industry segment for us has been industry and manufacturing, which at this point in time is impacted, but that probably is the least impacted, because how long would you stay? You cannot bring factories inside your homes. So the machinery, the heavy equipment that stays out there, it will stay where it is, and people will have to go and work in these environments. So the option is, how can you create, or how can you create the level of trust in people coming into workplaces, or people getting back to businesses? So among the service lines also that we have chosen, we also see a big shift which is taking place. So food services business that we have has come to a grinding halt, with offices being closed. Nobody is getting into the pantries and and ordering food. Everyone's eating at home, and the restaurant business is getting impacted. But then at the same time, our hygiene or cleaning business is seeing a huge uptick. And we are moving. There is a drastic change from the old manpower-based cleaning to a huge amount of technology which is being brought into this vertical. And we are working with most of our key accounts to bring in whole host of new concepts, whether it is UV cleaning, robotics, UV installation in AHUs to prevent the cross contamination through centralized air conditioning, redesigning the entire workplace to actually give the comfort for employees or people walking in. And I'm sure Pranay will also relate to a lot of these, so much so that we've now launched a new product which we call Pure Space, which is basically depends on bringing the best and the highest hygiene standards in this industry for the customers, making sure we use the right sort of chemicals, we use the right sort of tools and technologies, and also then aided with a proper testing. So you can actually, there are, in food industry is used to do ATP testing, which is adenosine triphosphate, which can actually indicate the presence of biological residue on a surface. So if you want to know how clean your desk is, and if you want to know how clean the chair on which you are sitting on actually is possible in a matter of 3 minutes. Okay, so we are bringing this more and more to our key customers in order to give them that level of confidence that that you can come inside and there is a pure space that could be created for you, which will reduce the infection that is currently present to a significant level, and that could be certified, and that's and we are working with some of our customers to actually give them a proper certification. So business is changing, adapting to newer ways of doing business. We're also evaluating, could we actually add another business segment to us, which is pharma and FMCG, which is the growth segment. So largely, I think there is an impact on our business. There is an impact on everyone's business, in these environments. But I think the choice of our industry segments, the choice of our services that we have taken in past are very, very resilient. And I think it's a matter of time when we tide over these crises and actually surge ahead.
Make a comment here.
Sandeep, you wanted to say something, yeah?
Yeah. So I think on the whole thought of key accounts, etc., I sort of thinking of a corollary. You see, we have tens of thousands of customers, right? 90% in terms of our account base is SMEs. So we have so many customers. I thought I'll bring in some good news amidst all that we're discussing, right? So what we realized is when the whole pandemic started, I think we felt that cash flows, and for everybody, cash flows are very, very important. We felt our cash flows are going to take a big hit. But I think the good news is that nearly all of our customers are paying up. Nearly all of our customers are recycling their business and coming back. Though they're coming back in smaller capacity than earlier. But the real good news is that I don't think that we're going to have material bad debts really, right? Which is a very, very positive sign. And the other positive sign that I see from SMEs is that if as an organization, a number of us are sitting here today, if as an organization we are conveying the right narrative in terms of offering safety first, people first, and giving comfort to the businesses in India. Today, let's say in the last month, we've signed up far more newer customers than normal times, because a lot of customers are looking for comfortable shores or comfortable companies where they can whom they can depend upon. So I think these two are very positive signs, not from the point of view of our business, but from the point of view of the business coming back. Of our regular customers, 90% of our customers are now trading with us in the last 30 days. So therefore, money is coming back, regular customers are trading, new customers are coming far more than ever before. So as an organization, if you hold yourself to the basics very well, I think businesses are indeed coming back. It's only a matter of building capacities from here on. I know there's uncertainty, but there's good news also.
Yeah, I would agree, Sandeep. And, just going back to what we were all talking about a little while back with Deepak on what is happening in the advertising and media industry, because, typically media spends are really the first ones to be chopped because, of course, if nobody's out in the market, why do I need to be advertising? But we are again seeing, we are seeing people coming back, yes, in a smaller measure right now than they were earlier. But definitely month on month, we are seeing the trend rising and not really staying flat or going down. So I think, yeah, and that's really what I think our viewers are looking for, that what are the signs of the economy coming back on track. I will go back to what Aksh was saying about cocooning, about the fact that, that impacts business, but also the silver lining, which is that, you're relooking at different sectors which will come back faster, which will need to be where they are. I mean, they cannot work from home, right? So I think what our viewers would, take out from this is that we will have to just rejig our models a little bit, be adaptable, be flexible. But like Sandeep said, stick to the basics also, because end of the day, those basics, crisis or no crisis, are what really hold businesses up during all kinds of times. And I would, Aksh, you talked about Pranay resonating with some of the points which you were making. Pranay, you are part of an industry which is emerging, Our other panelists are parts of, the sectors which are sort of, much more well established. Co-working is an industry which is, emerging. It had not even fully designed itself and formed a clear, place in the users' minds, and it is now having to, I think, completely redesign itself over the next, foreseeable future. So it would be, good to hear your thoughts on where you think this space is going. How are you guys and, other players in the sector really building back resilience and, trying to bounce back into the sector?
Super. Thank you. And thanks for asking an industry question. I truly feel like I'm representing the Indian Workspace Association a lot more than 91 Springboard today. And interesting that you say that it's an emerging industry. Like, just through the COVID period is where the association really got formed also. And we are still in the process of registering it. So really new industry. I think at a core, right? And the core theme that I heard the other people talk about also is the challenges and opportunity. And like you'll hear from me talking about also getting back to the core, which Sandeep so well mentioned. See, in our case, as a co-working industry, the challenge is, if there is a lockdown and people can't come to office, people can't come to office, right? And then even if you're trying to serve customers, like, how do you serve them? And that has been a challenge for people. But on the other side, on the opportunity, the interesting bit is flexibility is something which is important, right? So at one part, there's a challenge of some people will choose to work from home. Some companies will allow people to work from home, and all of this would mean that there's potentially X% impact on the requirement for office space, right? If you ask me, I think I can see that work from home can impact about 5 to 10% of the demand for office space. But on the other side, within the demand for office space, the flexible part of the industry, which was roughly about 3 to 4% of the industry. We do believe it will take a much, much larger scope in the industry. And with that, I think how the industry is thinking and what kind of logically makes sense also is you would have noticed that in last 2-3 years, a bit of the media perspective that you had heard from the industry was shifting to, we have customers who are in the long-term lock-in. We are trying to go after enterprise customers who are in long-term lock-ins, etc. And the truth is, honestly, if what you're doing is giving out a space to a 300 people team with a 3-year lock-in, honestly, you do need to think through what are you doing different compared to what, say, DLF is doing, right? And that's the kind of thought process that the whole industry is going through on how can you create much more flexibility, and that's where the opportunities lie. So for example, a lot of companies which are downsizing or which were in an oversized office, now they are coming to co-working spaces because they don't want to do another round of asset investment. They want flexibility. They don't know where the industry, how quickly will their industry grow, right? And they are coming. The work from home has actually led to a whole new phenomena of remote working. So companies are reaching out to co-working spaces saying, I had an employee who was traveling from Noida to Gurgaon every day, right? And he was spending 3 hours in traffic. And now I realize I don't need to get him to do that. But at the same time, I do recognize that all of us know that home, like it's inefficient to work at home unless you have that sort of locked room where you can work quietly, etc. Right? So these companies are reaching out to co-working spaces, looking for flexible, remote working kind of environment for their teams, right? And I think for co-working spaces, a lot of them are thinking through now creating packages around this, right? Can you create a small package where a company can say buy a certain number of credits, which any of their employees can utilize to work out of any of the co-working space that you have across India. So these are the various opportunities that exist. Thankfully, our industry seems to be one of those which will bounce back much faster because of all of this. And the companies are working towards that, right? So focus on the core and think through that.
I think, Pranay, it makes me really happy to hear that, as part of the co-working industry, you are really looking at it very, very positively, and that it will create, new opportunities. I mean, I really enjoyed our chat yesterday where you were saying, that completely different models which we have not seen in the working and remote working space will come up. I particularly thought, the conversation we were having about credits to use workspace flexibly, or almost like coupons, was something really interesting. Do you think you want to just share that with our viewers?
Sure. So see, right now, a lot of way co-working spaces used to sell was also for their customer, they would associate them with a single building, right? But instead of that, now you'll see a lot more packages coming up where a co-working space is saying, I have 30 offices across India, and to a client, I can give a certain amount of credits, which any of your team member can use anywhere. So now your Noida team member, the day he's working out of Noida, can use there. If he's going to meet a client in Gurgaon, we can just use it there. And there'll be a lot of opportunities, including for the aggregators, right? So instead of co-working spaces doing this, there are aggregators who could aggregate it across the co-working space and offer such packages to the companies. It also means not just creating this package, right? That's the easier bit of it, but thinking through how does the whole stakeholder decision-making works within the companies. So for example, right now an employee is used to doing a meeting out of a cafe and filing a bill for reimbursement. And there's a whole system set, like the accounts team knows that the employee has a permission to spend so much on a client meeting. But on the other side, the employees aren't used to taking a co-working bill and filing it for reimbursement. Accounts aren't used to just clearing that out. So there's scope for people to go in, help companies think through those policies, help HR think through what is safe for the employees, what isn't, what to approve. Similarly, accounts team to do that and create systems around that, right? So there's a lot of opportunities on this front, and the industry will just evolve in all these directions.
Right. So I think we focused a lot of our conversation on people working, people getting to work. Amitabh, I would, want your view on what is your take on the employment situation and the likely recovery? Because while there are enough people who are working from home, there's always also been a percentage who have been laid off, and that has happened across blue collar, gray collar, white collar. So as with your vast experience in this space, and also the fact that you also work with multiple sectors, please do share your perspective with us on that.
Thanks, Jyoti. Thanks, Jyoti. And just to build on the perspectives already shared with some of the other co-panelists, one thing that struck me is that after 90 days of this lockdown, we are in such a state that but if demand comes back to 50% of what it was in February, we are actually feeling happy about it. So, we are actually sort of seeing it as green shoots, which they are, no doubt about it. But, the sobering thought really is that we are really in for the long haul. Because I believe that, and we are seeing this with all our customers at First Meridian. First Meridian is now amongst the largest staffing companies in the country. We offer a whole range of services and we work with a whole set of sectors. So we are clearly seeing that some sectors are, of course, completely decimated. So whether, where you look at the discretionary urban space, now that space is completely gone. Now, and when you look at the rural staple space, that space is really robust. That's continuing to move along very well. Urban staples is also sort of, it's going to come back much, much faster. And we're already seeing that. But the urban discretionary space is just completely gone. And I think we're in the, we are in for a very, very long haul. And sort of, if you look at what's happening to specific sectors of demand, we are seeing that overall, we are still down about 15 to 18%, almost 20% down. And we don't see that changing anytime very soon. Because some of these sectors, which are large people employers, such as cinemas, a lot of the malls and those kinds of things, they are not coming back anytime fast. Because, we were having a conversation the other day, and even if these sectors open up, let's ask ourselves, right? Tomorrow, if air travel opens up, how soon are we sort of rushing to get into an aircraft, right? And people are worried about safety. So there are two predominant, emotions that are right now that we are seeing. One is fear, and Aksh talked about that. Sandeep talked about that. In terms of, people are more and more concerned about the safety of their workplaces. So safety is a key. So this fear is leading to a concern for safety. The other is that there is a large amount of frustration that's there with many of these people, with the lockdown, with the lost opportunities, and with what's going to happen to their livelihoods. So the sectors that we are seeing in terms of the staples that are coming back are the ones that are be able to tackle these sentiments to a stronger extent. So you are seeing retail doing reasonably well, but all kinds of outbound sales, all kinds of sales activities are really, taking a backseat. So, for example, we deal with very large banks, and they use a lot of our staffing members and staffing people for outbound sales, to sell cards, to sell personal loans, to sell, consumer durable loans, and those kinds of things. Now we are seeing that all of those kinds of things they've just come crashing down because there is this fear of breadth. In the sense that because people now know that it spreads mainly through the breath. So anything that needs interaction and anything that needs face time, right? Not in the Apple way of face time, but in an actual physical face time. We are seeing that those activities are taking a massive hit and therefore having a cascading impact on employment as well. So all kinds of activities which involve face-to-face interactions. So whether it is sales related, whether it is collection related in across industries. And those are the sectors that are taking a massive hit. Sectors that are not taking such a big hit are, for example, retail, especially staples retail. That is really not taking a hit. In fact, some of these guys are actually wanting more people. The challenge that we as labor suppliers, because we are largely in the blue collar service space, the challenge that we are having, and I think across the industry, right, is the fact that there is a shortage of talent now. Because when you go out, because so many people have gone back home and so many people have gone back to their villages, because a large amount of this workforce really is the migrant workforce. So even if people want us to ramp up, right? So for example, e-commerce is another sector that's really ramping up. And because more and more people are staying at home and more people are wanting to order things. And so we have a standing open book for as many people as we can hire in terms of delivery agents now. But getting delivery agents is a massive risk. Because, people are saying, even if people are at home, even if people are available in Mumbai or in the other larger cities where this demand is there, they don't want to come out to work because, because they have to go door to door and house to house, and they have a lot of family pressure from their families to say, don't do this, because they are seeing that in one day, they will have to actually be face to face with maybe 20 different people when they're delivering packages. So therefore, this is the other dynamic that's also playing into the whole situation where, where this fear is sort of playing. What I would like to also share really, in terms of sort of what we are seeing is that companies that are being successful or better, more successful in navigating this are really following, very key sort of simple policies. And what we are seeing ourselves in our own company, for example, right? So we have used three basic factors when we talk to our employees, and we find that, to get business back, one of the first things that we have to really do is to get the trust and the confidence of our employee back. Because if the employee is disengaged, or if the employee is not feeling safe, right, about whether his personal safety or about his livelihood, then he's not going to really help deliver the company's objectives. So therefore, to get this confidence back, right, there are two frameworks that we are dealing with, and that I also sort of am proposing. One is really a framework which is the CIA framework, the C stands for communication, which is really open and frank communication. Because if you see that demand is not going to come back in a hurry, right, then it's best to tell employees that, look, it's not going to come back in a hurry, right? So it's not about making people depressed, but it's about being open, and it's being open about telling employees what's going to happen and what's not going to happen. So for example, employees which expect the appraisal cycle. Now the appraisal cycles and increments are a thing of the past. That's not going to happen this year, right? So open communication about these things, I think, is, it generates trust, because the employee then believes that you're not taking him for a ride. He's sort of clear in his mind, and he re-engages with his business. The second is investment in that relationship. And, Sandeep, a lot of people talked about, how when you talk about a B2B business, how you need to continue investing in that relationship, even though the business may or may not be there, because the customer may be facing a lot of issues. So this investment in the relationship, whether it is with the employee or whether it is with the customer, is really very critical. And this can be done in various different ways. So for example, if it's employees, and the fact that you're encouraging them to take, say, for example, e-learning courses, right, and adding value to themselves and suggesting to them what they can do, those kinds of things really demonstrate the fact that you are interested in his long-term career and that there is a long-term, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't really be talking to the employee about how he can add value to himself. Similarly, for customers, even though, Aksh talked a lot about safety of the workplace and how they can do that, and just feeding information to people really shows an investment in the relationship. So I think apart from communication, the investment in the relationship is the other big thing that, I think is going to be a key part of how you retain share. Because some of the other panelists also talked about the fact that now in this space, getting new business is difficult. So therefore, retaining what you have, right, is going to be very, very key. The third aspect is really getting those anchors. That's the A of the CIA, right? Which is that how do you find the right anchors so that people see that not everything around them is changing. When so many things are changing, right, people need those anchors of certainty to say, these are things that are not changing. Right? And therefore, whether it's the value system of the company, whether it's the care culture that the company had, whether it's the other cultural cues that many companies have, right? Those things are not changing, and those things will not change. I think that's something which is very important. So in that CIA framework, the communication, the investment, and the anchors, I think those are things that are going to be very, very critical to a company in terms of whether they're dealing with customers or whether they're dealing with employees, in terms of retaining the best, retaining those customers, retaining those employees, getting their confidence, and then therefore getting them re-engaged in the future. Because then they see that my personal position is not really, something that's under risk, and therefore they are interested and engaged in what the future holds. So that's really, one kind of framework. The other thought that I did want to share is on the people pieces, which is really that, in a context like this, in a situation like this, I think all companies, and B2B companies also, and perhaps B2B companies in particular, right, have to really think about what are we doing in terms of three key things in terms of employee engagement and in terms of employee management. The main processes for employees really, right, are what? They are basically goal setting, performance management, and rewards and recognition. Now, in all of these three, to my mind, need a change in these circumstances. Goals can no longer be long-term goals. I would propose that even an annual goal, for example, now is too long. You need to now start getting into maybe weekly goals, not even monthly goals, but maybe even weekly goals, right? To say, okay, so what is it that we are wanting to do this week, right? And let's just list out what we are wanting to do this week and get that done, right? So how goal setting is done, I think, and how achievable those goals are is going to be one very key aspect. The second key aspect is really in terms of performance management. Because once you have a certain set of goals, now how do you really look at performance in these kind of circumstances? Do you still go and implement a bell curve, for heaven's sake, right? And do you still do those kinds of practices, for example? So how you do performance management and how you look at giving your employees confidence to say that the company continues to be extremely fair in its performance management, right, is the second key piece to my mind. And the third, which is linked to performance management, is really in terms of rewards and recognition. So how are you rewarding your people, and what kind of, because fixed increases in linked to appraisal cycles is a thing of the past in many companies. In fact, in most companies, and people are talking about 25% cuts and 30% cuts. The era of increases, frankly, I think for the next 2 to 3 years is out. It's not going to happen. So therefore, how do you link rewards more to immediate goals, more to things which are more variable, so that people see that their performances are being recognized and that they get rewarded for it, at the same time not expecting the fixed remuneration increases that have been happening in the past. So I think this set of pieces will give confidence to the employee, make the employee re-engaged, and that re-engagement to an extent will ensure that the relationship investments happen with the customers, and therefore you are ready to capture the customer demand and serve the customer once his demand comes back, because we are talking in the B2B context, and our business really depends on the customer's business. And if the customer doesn't see business, then obviously we don't see any business. So those are some broad thoughts, in terms of where we are, and in terms of what I see ahead, and the kind of things in terms of practices that companies might want to think about in terms of, as they come back.
So I would like, Mr. Juneja and Mr. Gambhir and, Mr. Rohtgi also to please give their views on this. We also have a specific question for Mr. Gambhir related to this topic from one of our viewers. So I'll just put that to you and then, move on to Mr. Juneja and Mr. Rohtgi. I'll just read out the question from our panel. This is from Mr. Rajesh Srivastav. And he's saying that, and this is directed to Sandeep Gambhir. He's saying in today's times when, companies are really, there is very little good news on the salary front, on training budgets, on, job cuts and so on. How is it that you as an organization have been, very forward thinking and, spending more on training and development and pushing your employees to, really reskill themselves and upskill themselves? So, we would really like to understand how did you plan for that, and what would be your tips to our viewers on this, because I think it is one of the most important conversations in today's discussion.
Yeah, Jyoti. I just taking a cue from what Amitabh also said. I think he's an expert on the people side, but that issue of people is, I think, probably, and I said it earlier as well, that the most significant component of the resilience package, if you were to create something that, okay, I want to be resilient, it has to be your employee. It is the client first, we say in most organizations, but I think in our case, it is the employee first, because at the end of the day, we are in an industry where the employees are serving the clients. We're not a tech-heavy company. I think technology will play a much larger role going forward in all our spaces, but the whole story has to be around your people. It's probably the most significant component of your resilience strategy going forward. Another important aspect that comes from managing people is, I think, the smile that we need to, and I think that getting impacted very significantly. Not that, because I don't think I have an infectious smile. I think I do have a very infectious smile, but the problem is I'm going to be wearing a mask now. So how do people get to see the smile on my face is something that is worrying me. Yeah, so probably you could be having masks with have the smile pasted on them, but it's, it's nothing to do with the smile or other thing. It's so important for us as leaders to be out there telling our people that you're already in a 90-day lockdown period. It's going to be a couple of weeks where you will probably hit the office. So if you were to think from an employee perspective, the various things that are going in their mind, they need clarity, they're confused, they're psyched out, they're anxious, they're worried. You can get so many of these adjectives. So I think the engagement there, and why just the upskilling piece? I think it's the overall package that you need to create around the employee to make him feel comfortable. A lot of things that Amitabh mentioned on the people side are very, very critical. Most important, you need to put your arms around them. Obviously not physically, there's social distancing times and all, but you need to give them comfort. I'll just tell you a couple of things that we've done. In fact, I sent out a message to my staff yesterday, and the message read, the good news today is that there are no salary cuts. So that's the good news. People have realized that. And I actually reached out to everybody because I knew it is something that's going in their minds right now. So we actually reached out to them. There are no salary cuts. In fact, at a certain level and below where people need more money, we're actually having an increment cycle this year. People will get increments in the next pay, which comes on. Actually, our pays used to come on 30th June before lockdown, 30th of the month. What we did was, and credit to our HR and the various teams that are working on it, we actually shifted the payout cycle a week in advance. People get their salaries now a week in advance than they were getting used to it. So it's kind of them having one lesser worry at least. We paid out bonuses last week. People were surprised. Actually, some people called up and said, is this our full and final settlement? Because they didn't expect. We actually kept it under wraps because these things take a longer time getting through. We've been working overnight to get the various approvals in place, figure out affordability. But we actually went out and paid 95% bonuses to people. It's in the range of 90 to 110%. But everybody who was supposed to get bonuses either got 90% of what he got last year or 110% of what he got last year. In today's age, people, and I was humbled by the messages that people were coming back and saying. So much so that they were saying we didn't even expect it. Now it gives me comfort that, okay, I know they don't expect it. Next time I'll be more careful about it and try and figure out what they afford. But as an organization, you need to do a lot to keep that people engagement to a very high level. The question that came on upskilling, what we did go up very soon, as Sandeep also mentioned, we are in the long haul this time. What we did mention is that we are trying to force our people, mandated to them that when you come back from lockdown, at least 3 skills should have been acquired. And we're going to ask for certification as well. So there are multiple things that you use in your daily life. Go to Coursera, go to Udemy, go to these training institutions. Get yourself upskilled on things that you, whether it's customer interaction, Excel, PowerPoint, negotiation skills, digital marketing, or whatever. They need to get upskilled. So we're doing a lot of that. We are engaging a lot with our people. We do play tambolas and antakshris and all of that as well, because that is also very critical because they are anxious. So the FaceTime concept that was coming up, we've lost that FaceTime with people. Actually, on that piece today, the most important question to people that ask is, am I audible? Is my screen visible? Those are the things that are actually, because we moved to an e-connecting module with people. So there is the whole people piece, whether it's upskilling, whether it's taking care of them, whether providing them clarity, or whether, giving them clarity about the fact that, yes, we continue to think about them, are becoming increasingly critical because actually they are the face of the organization. So if you manage all of that well, I think we're doing reasonably okay. That's the sense that we get. But yeah, looking at the discussion that we are having in this panel, there are certainly ideas that one could look at in terms of what could be the next way of performance management, what could be the next way of probably a goal setting. I agree with Amitabh. Yeah, the long term is gone. I think we're in the only thing that is there for the long term, and as Sandeep alluded to that in the beginning as well, that we are in for a long haul. And just take 2 minutes on something that I've used with my people very, very frequently is the whole camel theory. And I think we need to realize, and I just relate it to an ad which used to see fill it, shut it, forget it. I don't think you can fill it for the long run right now. You'll have to have multiple refills being taken. Because when we went into the first lockdown, we thought it's 3 weeks, then another 2 weeks, then another 3 weeks, then unlock one, and then you have a fear of a lockdown again. So I think the whole camel theory comes back again that you're in for a long run, whether it's good memories, whether it's the staples, or whether it's the good vibes that you have. You are in a desert right now and you don't see an end. So stock up like a camel, keep refilling yourself every opportunity that you get, because I think we are living in uncertain times right now. Plan for the next week and the next week and the next week. I think that should be it. I don't think what March 21 looks like is on anybody's mind, frankly. I think people are more worried about June 30th than March 2021.
Yeah, I think Sandeep, I agree to a lot of what you say and what Amitabh has said before in terms of people. For us being over 70,000 employee organization, people, of course, is the main asset. I mean, we are asset-light company, but it's only about people, and these are the times actually to take more care for them. So one of the things I would probably, and I will not try and repeat all that you've said, but maybe in your CIA approach, Amitabh, the part of C, which is in terms of communication, I would add on to an open and honest communication. I see there is a lot of lip service and a lot of people, a lot of leaders, they do talk about it. Okay, so we need to see things in action, and we need to sometimes give a very open and honest message to our employees, and it has a lot of value in it. It will be needless to say, I mean, to say that my business is not getting impacted, or for it'll be an overstatement for anyone. Okay, every business in today's day and age is impacted, and it is impacted significantly. Now, how do you deal with that pressure is more important. How honest and transparent do you want to be with your employees is important. And where do you develop that trust with with your employees? I mean, there is a lot of personal rapport that you can that will help you during this time, but also bringing in a whole host of honesty and transparency, to my mind, is most important. I mean, we as an organization, we've taken all the similar steps. I mean, Sandeep, like you said, whether it's doling out bonuses or improving the medical insurances of our employees in this time, actually creating a solidarity fund for employees who a large part of our people come from the lowest strata of our economy. So that solidarity funds goes in and help them out. So taking those steps to actually demonstrate, showing that we genuinely mean what we preach, actually goes a long way. Now, having said that, the people aspect, which is very, very dear to me, also comes along. In addition to this, this has to go hand in hand with the financial aspect. Okay, and India is is a country where we were given a package of 300 billion US dollar, right? There were about 2 and then 13 zeros. I mean, it took me some time to write the number of zeros which were being announced in the 20 lakh crore package which was being announced, and then really see what really is the impact. Okay, in comparison, we all know what the impact of that package, so I will not go in more detail. But if we see in comparison, a lot of other countries, whether it's Australia has a Job Keepers Act. Okay, you get paid $1,500 per fortnight if you end up losing a job, or whether it's Netherlands or it's UK. I mean, where they have job insurances, and employees can actually claim in case the businesses are going down by more than 30%. So if your revenue falls by 30%, you can actually claim for the employment insurance and get about 70 to 80% of your salaries. And close to India, Singapore, if you see, their job support scheme is amazing, where they are willing to fund from 25% to 75%, depending upon the industry that you are in. Whereas, closer to home, we do not have any of these helicopter schemes, so there is no helicopter money coming into our businesses. And we have to make sure, how do you manage your cash flows? How do you manage your chartered accountant? Sandeep, you would relate so much more to me in terms of how do you keep your powder dry? Make sure that, you have sound practices which, and variabilize your fixed expenses as much as you can. Tide over the current situation, change your pricing models, and multiple newer ways of financial discipline that you can bring along. So my recommendation to most of the viewers is, we follow the people practices. Be honest about it. I mean, we don't have to. Everyone knows there is an impact. Reskilling is the need of hour. Everyone wants to surge ahead. We are literally, this one of the examples that I keep on giving, many times to my team is, imagine, and I feel this, you're the captain of the ship, and ship is actually, approaching a storm. And when you are in a storm, you see there is storm coming from a distance. So when you see the storm, that's the time really to actually prepare your organization for. And that's the time you would put your credit lines in. That's the time you will, figure out, what sort of debt risk that you may be incurring, what sort of assets that you can actually liquidate at that point in time. So you do all the preparation. But once you are in the storm, actually, that's the time you need your ability to withstand the storm and withhold the pressure, so that when the pressure recedes, you are able to actually surge ahead. And we are right now, most of the businesses are in the phase where we are withholding or withstanding the storm, okay, with the hope that this storm is soon going to recede. And what are the things that we ideally can do at this point in time, which can actually then help us surge ahead at the time when the storm comes, when the storm recedes. So so along with the people practices, which is how do you get your best talent in? How do you actually rather acquire the best talent in at this point in time? It's a golden time to actually go out and do that, so that you prepare yourself very well, for the post-COVID era. So I think people, finance, and the entire, the business lever part, I mean, if it is being looked at together in a right balancing way, can actually make a difference for for most of the businesses.
Right. Mr. Juneja, you had, we had spoken yesterday about how the logistics industry has really had to function almost through the lockdown. And, many of the points which Aksh made are, I think, amplified and multiplied for you. So it would be good to hear how you have ensured and how you're looking forward to, rebuilding whatever has been, lost in the past few months.
See, so as an organization, we are about 4,000 people, and a bulk of these people have to work in the field, right? Because we are in the business of logistics. We have to go to the customers, pick up their goods, take them to the airport, build containers, load these containers on our planes, and then take them across to 220 countries across the world, right? And we function in 750 cities in India. And all the people here on the panel and the people who are listening, we know that the real impact of the federal structure was so much realized during this period, right? We realized that nearly every state had the power to build on the terms and conditions of how we are unlocking or locking in the lockdown. And therefore, I think it was a big challenge for us to decipher what was going around in the country. We were one company in 750 cities, so to say. And for us to operate as an essential service provider, being paranoid about the safety of our employees. You see, and some of these words are so profound. So the purpose of our organization is connecting people, improving lives. So we've often mused about this concept, talked about the purpose to so many people, but the purpose comes so alive right now: connecting people, improving lives. So what is it that a courier who goes up to pick up an important shipment which has to be sent abroad thinks about, right? He's thinking about the purpose that he's living, connecting people, improving lives. There are many firsts that we had to do. I think the only focus we had in the initial times was our people, and that's the only focus we have right now. And I think Amitabh said that, it was Sandeep Gambhir said that, Aksh said that if our people don't feel safe, our people don't feel that we are doing the best, what it takes to keep them safe, I don't think our businesses will survive, right? So I think that is paramount, and we've realized it when we were trying to come up in these 750 cities across the whole country. And I think what really kept us afloat was some integral fabric. Now, for instance, for many, many years, there are three things that we've been really focusing on. If our global CEO comes and stands and says, you know what, we'll talk about business later, I want to talk about three things. The first is safety. The second is compliance with the regulation, the local. And the third is cyber attacks, right? Somebody mentioned about cyber attacks before we got onto the call, really. But look at it. Each and every individual, if he's thinking safety and compliance, that is when magic happens. Magic does not happen when the CEO talks safety and compliance. Magic happens when every individual is living safety, is living compliance. I think that is the fabric which is holding us so well, because these are the radars in stormy times. And I think our radar is firmly in place. As long as we keep focusing and keep staying focused on safety, on compliance with the law of the land, the government is going to trust us, the customers are going to trust us, and most importantly, people are going to trust us. So I think safety and compliance have been really tested. How deep ingrained are safety and compliance as radars in your system?
Right.
And one more thing, sorry, Jyoti, if I may.
Of course.
Is that because, we deal with tens of thousands of customers and we interact with them every day. And these customers are of all kinds, right? Entrepreneur, a startup, small and medium enterprise, very large enterprise, etc. In some way, what we're also trying to do is we are trying to influence and share with them, this is what we are doing. And when we come and pick up your shipments from you, sir, can we request you to do this so that, both you and they're concerned about us, we're concerned about them. So I think we are working with our customers to raise the bar of safety in the whole process, because transportation can get really, really stressed, because if you look at the air capacities have come down, passenger planes are not flying. We have lesser people doing more job. So while demand has come down, supply side has also got constrained, right? So there is a mismatch. Whatever demand is there, supply is still constrained because there are lesser people, lesser vehicles, lesser aeroplanes. I think there's a lot of stress. So we're working very closely with our customers to make sure that some of the practices of the past are revised and we follow newer practices in terms of digitalization, lesser contact, paperless trade, and therefore improving the whole ecosystem to prepare for the new normal.
Right. Pranay, as part of an industry which is, can you hear me? Pranay, are you able to hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. So I'm saying as part of the emerging industry, the financial practices and the constraints and the pressures are even higher if they could possibly be, always, and definitely more so in the current scenario. What would be your advice, or what are the kinds of things which you have seen have stood you and your company in good stead in this kind of a scenario, and what could our entrepreneurial viewers learn from that?
Sure. So you're right, the financial pressures are high, primarily due to two reasons. One, it is a new industry. People hadn't built the kind of war chest that sometimes you expect long, stable industry companies to end up building. And the second bit is because it was a fast growing industry, people have been reinvesting much faster. So that also led to the war chest being much lower. If you ask me, the way we've been thinking, and also what I recommend to people is, one is the bit of just reverting back to the core, right? So any growing industry, fast growing startup, you would end up doing multiple projects. There'll be multiple stream of activities happening. And this is a time where we've all started thinking through, if a core is co-working, core is the membership part of the business, then maybe trimming some activities on the other side, thinking through how we are investing there. It has also led to a lot of us thinking through the financial modeling. So for example, there is a lot more conversation with the property owners, right? The builders who are our partners in the business, on going back to them and doing a revenue share conversation versus a straight lease conversation, right? So share the upside and share the downside, and let's go through this together. So those are a few things. I think beyond that, and beyond the kind of obvious just thinking through cash flow, one thing that I do feel I want to tell entrepreneurs, again, not just co-working, but across, is I hear a lot of entrepreneurs talking of taking up loans to tide through the cash flow, right? And I do want to be telling people to be a bit cautious about that. And primarily because of the way the loan as an instrument works, right? Like loan makes sense to be utilized for projects which will generate cash flow, right? Loans, so it goes well in working capital, right? It goes well in certain kind of investments which are expected to start creating cash flow at a certain pace, right? But loans aren't designed for seeing you through survival while you don't know how your industry will bounce back, right? So I do want to tell entrepreneurs to be cautious about that. There were a few questions around this too. So, so think through how you'll be managing finances, and it may make sense for people to just raise equity at a lower valuation if they have that choice versus going through loans. Jyoti, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Okay. So I think I'm a little cognizant of the time also. I would like to now take a couple of questions from what our viewers have put up on our Q&A panel. I see that some of you have also already answered a few, so that thank you to you for that. I'll take two, and then I just have one question for all of you as a closing thought, and I will then hand it over to Deepak. So there's one that I'm picking up. So with the, with a lot of the closures in the B2B industry being dependent, at least till now, on actual face-to-face interaction, the final closure of the deal really happens when you meet a person and, you iron out the nitty-gritties and the small details which are really sort of, holding up the closure. In the current scenario where we see that face-to-face is definitely going to be limited for some more time to come, how do you, as industry leaders, look at acquiring new business and closing new deals? Because that is going to be also equally important to getting back on track.
Okay, I'll take the lead here. See, in our business, and I think most of the B2B business, there is a lot of new business that you get through word of mouth, through trust. If you are able to take care of the existing clients, the retail she also spoke about, if you are able to take care of the retention part, getting the newer business becomes that much more easier. The face-to-face closure, I think if it requires face-to-face closure, look at what is happening to Jio. I don't think they're meeting people face-to-face to get the billions of dollars that they're getting it. So I think if you're in a place where people need you, the word of mouth around you is good, you will get there sooner rather than later. So closures will happen. There is enough technology now facilitating stuff that was earlier and obvious through a face-to-face discussion, or being physically present, signing papers physically and all that. I think there are enough ways and means to address that. What is more important is that are your clients speaking good about you, which will help you get newer businesses? The news is the vibe about your organization better in the marketplace than it was before? I think those will hold larger relevance.
Jyoti, I'll also jump in. So kind of adding to what Sandeep said, I do truly believe that the face-to-face aspect is 5% of the sale, right? Like 95% is being able to communicate value. Now, value you could be doing in helping the client in increasing their revenues, alternately decreasing their expenses. And if you can communicate that well, I think that's the second bit of it. So, so my suggestion would be think through how you're communicating value, and then second, how you're able to create trust, create social proof, and those two things. Like, people are doing business, right? It's not like just because they're not meeting, their business is closed. And if they're doing business, they need your support. So think through those aspects.
Jyoti,
so, one last. Sorry. Yes, yes.
Just one quick comment, and just to build on what Pranay and Sandeep mentioned. I think, investing in that relationship, even if it is not face-to-face, but human contact need not only be face-to-face as well. So if you're investing in that relationship, whether by way of calls, whether by way of messages, whether by way of, forwarding interesting links that are useful to the customer, it basically tells the customer that you are thinking about him and that you're thinking about his business. And if you succeed in doing that, then I think the bond remains or can get established if there is none, if you're prospecting, for example, right? But it's not just, you know, in terms of saying that I'm interested in your business, but it's communicating that I'm interested in you and I'm interested in your success. So it's not that I'm interested only in my business and what I can get from you, but how I can help you. So I think that piece, and to my mind, face-to-face, of course, is great because body language is so important. But even if it's not face-to-face, I think some of these elements can still be used in terms of, you know, giving the assurance to the prospect or to the existing customer in terms of saying that, look, I am interested in you. I'm interested in your business. I'm interested in your well-being. I think that matters a lot.
I think as long as we're solving problems, business will happen. The point is, are we being able to identify and solve problems for others? But there is going to be a handicap, and as I think Amitabh said that in terms of body language, the over coffee chats and detailed discussions and digging and looking for problems and solutions. So I think those elements are going to be sorely missed. But the fact is, the people you were going to have those conversations with, they're also working from home, mostly, isn't it? But wherever I think there is a need, as the economy opens up and unlock improves, I think there will be face-to-face meetings. Nothing can take away their importance. But as long as you focus on solving problems, things will keep moving, albeit with a difference in speed, in my view.
Thank you, Mr. Juneja.
Just
I think
30 seconds here on a lighter note. Actually, at times we realize how we solve problems. And, you know, just taking cue from what Aksh said, I think all of us were trying to figure out where did that 2 lakh crore went, 200 lakh or whatever that number is. You know, now when he was speaking, I found the answer. Aksh, I had a 12-digit calculator. You mentioned about the 13 zeros. That's why I never figured out where did it go. So maybe, you know, at times we just answer things, not even figuring out what we are trying to solve. Now I have an answer. So some people actually have an old Casio 10-digit. I thought I'm advanced. I have a Casio 12-digit. But I think that's also rendered useless now.
This is a learning for you that you have to change your calculator.
Yeah. No, so the $300 billion sounds much more simpler actually now.
True. And I think you managed to answer a lot of the questions which our panelists put up, which our viewers put up in some form or the other. So I will not go for any more. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolutely interesting discussion. I do hope that our viewers have got some interesting nuggets out of them. There were a few questions which I think we would leave for people to maybe touch base with you separately as whatever. And I will now hand it over to Deepak to sort of put the closing remarks on our conversation.
No, thanks. I think it was an outstanding conversation, insightful and engaging. Aksh, Sandeep, Amitabh, Pranay, thanks for giving those wonderful insights. I'm actually coining two terms out of the discussion today. One is reset, that is learn and evolve, and renew, be futuristic. I think with all the shared expertise of everybody and a shared knowledge, we will pass through this phase and emerge much stronger and do what we are supposed to be doing here. Well, as a tradition of CEO Lounge, it's always good to know the speakers a little bit more and let the audience also know you guys. So let me start with Sandeep. Sandeep, cricket stopped. I know you are a cricket buff. You want to play cricket much. So what's keeping you fit here these days? What have you been doing during the lockdown?
So I have 2 sons and 2 dogs. The definition keeps changing. Who's a son and who's a dog. Because the earlier definition is if your son sleeps with you when they were small, I have dogs sleeping with me. But yeah, they keep me busy throughout the day. So there is something or the other happening. I do the groceries at home. I'm not going to talk about the BJP here that most people are doing, which is the Bartan Jhadu and Pocha. But there is a lot happening that is keeping you fit, and that's the part of being resilient actually. So I'm not trying to build on the other curves. I'm trying to flatten that curve that helps you stay fit.
Interesting. And Amitabh, we had a lot of speakers who came down in the previous webinars, and they spoke about that they've practically been running marathon in their Bombay homes balconies, and I'm pretty sure you're one of them, because I see that you have actually lost quite a few kgs over the last few months. So what's that exercise mode that you have been following in this lockdown time?
So two things. One, I learned from some of my other friends, but I've been walking in the house while speaking on the phone. That sort of knocks off 10, 12,000 steps in a day without you ever knowing it. So that's, I think, something that people could think about. But more importantly, really, we have an exercise bike at home. So that's been seeing a lot of, pedaling and movement, which is contributing and helping.
Excellent. And Sandeep, you've not been driving Formula One anymore. I know that's a little short for the moment. And you've been a fit guy always. And I know you cook also very well. So what have you been cooking these days, yeah?
Formula One sponsorship is solely missed in India. We love bringing it to India, but that's a story for another day. I think quite like Amitabh, I have a cycle on a trainer at home. And many of the calls that I take, or maybe if I'm watching I catch up a lot of news on YouTube these days, very good editorials. And I'm often on the cycle watching my phone or a screen in front of me on the trainer. That's one. And I think the companionship at home has also gone up. So some of the old movies, and you were talking about movies earlier. So I recently saw the Shawshank Redemption again. It's an old classic. And I saw it with my wife, right? And another good Hindi movie I recently saw was Thappad. And I saw it with my wife, and it's such a sensitive movie. I think that quality of time with family is also gone up, because there is more time that you're at home. I think that balance is good in managing the negative emotion and the negative stress which is outside. And I think helps me that's a role that I have to play, right? Which is be positive externally, be positive internally at home, internally with the employees, and externally for the customers. I think that positivity, hopefully, is keeping us going, right? So that's the real thing, right?
Excellent. And Pranay, Springboard has been very artistic and very creative display whenever you go down to your co-working space. Personally, what kind of an art do you indulge into?
Oh, so creativity is honestly not something that I'm known for. I think the minimal art that I've done during lockdown is I've been helping my mother in a kitchen garden, and I was handed this, the big, the garden scissors, and I was asked to trim the hedge, and seems like it came out well. The other one that I did is I have two young daughters, 3 and 7, and I've been try my hand at cooking for them, and I've been doing these odd shaped puris. So I've tried to combine their lessons with that, right? So alphabet shaped puris or something like that, which my wife hates. It increases her kitchen time by a much longer time. But I think that's a few odd places where you've been seeing my art during this time.
No, interesting. So Pranay, for another day, you mentioned about the 4 girls in your life and still absolutely black hairs on your head, completely full. So we'll talk about it some other day, So Aksh, what's keeping you busy? I mean, what kind of movies are you watching these days?
So one of my favorite, Deepak, has been the series of Rocky Balboa, and all of us can relate to it. And it's an evergreen movie for me. And I don't remember how many number of times I watched this during this period of lockdown. But I think apart from the movies, whenever you're switching on the channels these days, is one depressing news than the other. So I've actually stopped watching the television and started actually reading books. And one very interesting book that I lay my hands on, and I'll leave the thought with the viewers, is Legs on Everest. And this is a story about the only double amputee who scales the Mount Everest. So you don't have legs, but nonetheless, you are right on top of the Mount Everest, which all able people are not able to do it. And the message that he tries and gives is, you always need to look for opportunity in adversity. Because you have prosthetic legs, so you do not get frostbite, which is the biggest fear for climbers. So, so with that, I think it's exactly the same situation that we all go through. It's very, very motivating. I leave the thought with everyone and would encourage all of you to try and get your hands on it. It's by Mark Inglis and very, very inspiring. So just trying to keep myself busy.
Oh, interesting. I think your storm story is also pretty inspiring, and that's a great thought that you left with all of us with that story too. And Jyoti, where are you putting your monies behind? Which OTT channel, which news channel? Where are you putting your monies onto here, and your clients' monies too?
The client's money, Deepak, goes to what really suits them best. Right now, my money is all going into paying for all the OTT that my kids want to watch. So they are like, you saw one little one flitting in and out, and then the elder one. So between the two of them, I think we are practically subscribing to every OTT that's there today.
Brilliant. Friends, thank you so much. I think it was an outstanding conversation. We had about 200 plus attendees. So thank you to each one of them. And we look forward to seeing you all on the next Saturday, 11 o'clock, on another very interesting discussion on how to manage monies in this challenging times. And until then, stay safe, stay healthy. Namaskar. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day.